Hey, True Believers, Eglantine here with part 2 of the Kent's family vacation across America. And I really enjoy this. It does kind of tell us what we lost culturally and in our comic book characters is Bendis took over and kind of destroyed everything that Tomasi built. And that's sad because he really did do a great run. I do have to apologize. The sound is a little different, and you're hearing an Eglantine that's not as confident at the mic also, and I do apologize for that later as well, I should say. I hope you enjoy it anyway, and yeah, with all that said, let's get this party started. I love this cover right here, and it really does sum up what not only this issue, but the storyline is about. I mean, you have Clark kneeling down, pointing to something, but what he's really doing is he's talking to John about American history. The other cover is okay. I mean, it focuses on the people, you know, and this is American history, so the people are the country, not the government, the people. However, they're looking up, and you can see that Superman is flying over them, so they're not in... This is the weaker of the covers, because it doesn't celebrate the country as much as it celebrates Superman, which is what I feel the story is not about. The book opens simply enough. You see Lois and John, they're sleeping, they hear something, and then just get up and look out the window to see Superman carrying the RV. I'm Han Solo and you're Chewie, Mom. More power to the rear shields. I think you meant General Leia. Morning, sleepyheads. Figured we'd bypass the highway and make up more time. Next stop, Washington, D.C. Now, that's a little bit cheating for a road trip, but I guess you can do that if you're Superman. And we see that the book is titled Independence Day. So we cut to Washington, D.C., and we see the family walking out of the Capitol building. Clark Kent asks, "What did you find the most interesting, John?" "The little subway that carries senators and representatives around was pretty cool." "It's getting late. We've got time for one more stop. National Archives or the Smithsonian?" "No need to flip. I know John wants to see the Air and Space Museum, but you guys want to see the archives. We can go next time." And I like the visual here where you have the obvious leftists on the left, the obvious right-wingers on the right. You can tell that, you know, the leftists have the blue hair, and the right are obvious veterans and the flag wavers and such. For some reason, Clark's wearing a Hamilton shirt, but there you go. The same groups are still arguing from when we came in. They're really angry at each other. People have the right to disagree. Doing it here in the capital of the country helps get more people to pay attention sometimes. Freedom of speech is all about having a different opinion and not worrying about the repercussions. What kind of repercussions? Words are powerful, John. They can change the world, and sometimes words have gotten people killed. There are still places where governments kick your door in at night if you're against them and drag you off to prison. And just as important as words are in changing the world, so are deeds. And here are some of the best. World War II Memorial, later. Why don't we trade off reading these plaques, Lo? December 7th, 1941 became a day that thrust the United States into a war that had been raging across the globe for nearly a decade. The Japanese attack against the U.S. Navy Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor shocked and enraged a nation, prompting a congressional declaration of war. Battleships that previously dominated took backs to the aircraft carriers during the naval war in the Pacific. Carriers had the ability to deliver massive amounts of firepower at great distances. This new style of naval warfare played a dramatic role in the success of the United States strategy of hopping from one enemy island to another. After American troops landed on islands in the Pacific, they found themselves in the middle of dense jungles, fighting against a hot, humid climate and a well-fortified enemy. After over 2 years of attacking German-held positions in France with bomber aircraft, the Allies launched the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. The joint operation codenamed Overlord successfully landed Allied troops on the shores of Normandy that were heavily laden with beach obstacles and exposed to a most horrid pre-sighted German fire. Following the invasion of Normandy, Allied and American troops launched Operation Cobra. Breaking through German defenses, tanks aided the infantrymen and played an integral part in the breakout into France. After more than 4 miserable years of hard fighting against a determined foe, word of a Japanese surrender arrived on August 14, 1945, 3 months after Nazi Germany, aboard the USS Missouri. Japanese government representatives signed documents officially ending the war forever known as VJ Day. Another war to end all wars. And you see John planting a flower right next to the wall where it says Kilroy was here. That was a popular graffiti that American soldiers would leave around wherever they took. So if they freed a beach or if they freed a town or something, somebody would scribble or just draw that doodle. It was first meme. It wasn't the first because it's basically based on Australia's Fu was here, but that's the meaning of that particular doodle. Straight to a police action in Korea. 4 short years later in June of 1950 and finally ending in July of 1953. Why wasn't it called a war like the others? Well, John, Congress never officially declared war, and from that point on, President Truman referred to it as a police action, because it was mainly fought under the support and direction of the United Nations. You see, the Korean War has been called the Forgotten War, because it was sandwiched between the massive international scale of World War II and the public turmoil and social unrest of the Vietnam War. I mean, I hate to even make comparisons like this, kiddo, but almost 37,000 Americans were killed in only 3 years of the Korean War, while over 58,000 Americans were killed from March 1965 until April 1975 in Vietnam. Not to mention the devastating civilian casualties, which make our dead look like a drop in the bucket. Never understood how the history books and popular culture have glossed over it. Well, I'm sure the men and women who served in the Korean War have never forgotten it. Who won, Dad? On July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed separating North and South Korea by a demilitarized zone. But no peace accords ever been signed, and technically a state of war still exists between the two Koreas. While just around the bend here, a black granite wall finally brought a sense of closure to a lot of American lives. Especially to my own father, who until he came here never spoke about his older brother who died in the MEDINA incident, which ended up being classified as the last battle of the Vietnam War. He died in a hail of gunfire on a beach in Koh Tang, after his helicopter crashed just offshore in the rescue attempt of the MEDINA merchant ship crew who were taken prisoner by the Khmer Rouge. Kurt Lang was his name. He died trying to save others, and inspired my father, General Samuel Lane, to join the Marines and serve his country. Rest in peace, Uncle Kurt. You're in the company of heroes. I hate to put on my critic hat after that, but did it just go from dusk to bright daylight? Our next stop was Lincoln Memorial, where we read the Gettysburg Address aloud in the South Chamber. Those immortal words pointing us towards our final destination on this weekend of independence, the Gettysburg National Military Park. According to Civil War Trust websites, the statue of Brigadier General Governor K. Warren, who came up here on July 2nd, 1863 to assess the situation and found Little Round Top completely undefended. He requested immediate assistance because he realized its position was more important since much of the hill was cleared of trees and could better accommodate the troops. It says strategically, Little Round Top held the key to growing battle. If the Southern troops could take and hold the hill, they could theoretically roll up the entire Union line and win the day. And that desperate bayonet counterattack led by Colonel Joshua Chamberlain of the 20th Maine stopped the Confederate assault and was one of the key factors of saving the Army of the Potomac and winning the Battle of Gettysburg. Oh, you remember that because of the movie Gettysburg. Best scene in the film, harrowing. Jeff Daniels as Chamberlain was great. How long did the war last, Dad? From 1861 to 1865. Feels strange walking on an old battlefield knowing there were dead soldiers laying all around. And that's why we're speaking quietly out of respect for all the young men who gave their lives here, John.
It's like I can hear them, Dad, like some echo from the past. I can feel their fear of dying in the air, their ghosts still moving around, their courage under fire, their screams. This place was soaked in blood 154 years ago. Who's to say it isn't haunted? Gotta admit that John was written more insightful than I was at his age. We visited Gettysburg and the war memorials when I was his age, and I had no sense of history at the time. Could not even comprehend the weight behind what I was looking at. And so they bound down a hill and cross a river, and just when they think they're lost, they run into a family that is celebrating a birthday. The family invites them to lunch, and during the conversation they tell them they always come, they rent a few of the cabins, and they sit and they celebrate the birthday of Thomas Dowd, a 22-year-old young boy from Hudson, New York, who never got the chance to see 23 or his son grow up. To which one kid responds, he's my great-great-grandfather is a Yankee Doodle dandy, which means he was born on the 4th of July. No, he died on it. July 4th, 1863. Shells rained down on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina. Thomas and a whole group of his bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young townsfolk enlisted on April 14th, 1861, almost 872 miles away. It might as well have been the moon, since no Dowd till that time had gone more than 5 miles from Hudson, New York. So, on that Easter weekend, Thomas didn't realize he was hugging his wife and infant son for the last time. Soon enough, he was standing picket duty while the U.S. Capitol was being built, one of the many defensive positions he'd take while Washington was under threat of attack by Robert E. Lee and his Confederates. Didn't take long for Thomas to find himself in the thick of it and discover the Civil War wasn't so civil, especially up close in hand-to-hand combat. At the Battle of Cross Keys and the Battle of Bull Run, Chancellorsville, Americans against Americans, neighbor versus neighbor, even sometime, brother versus brother. And then here, Rock Creek, Gettysburg. Thomas, firing at Confederate troops coming across the creek, is shot in the shoulder on July 1st. A Confederate tries to finish Thomas off, but he managed to save himself while sustaining another wound. For 3 days, Thomas lay in a makeshift field hospital just above the creek's bank with the other wounded Union soldiers. The tattered hospital record mentioned his leg had been amputated after infection spread, but his arm would heal. As a steady rain fell that night of July 4th, I'm sure all he thought of was going home and spending his next birthday with his wife and boy. But it wasn't meant to be, as the rain kept coming down until dark waters rose over the creek's banks and literally swept away the wounded like helpless ants, Thomas included. Union patrols spent 2 days searching the area after the flash flood. They found all the wounded bodies from that horrible night but one. Thomas's body was never recovered. This is an annual tradition going on 154 years. As long as there's a living, breathing Dowd and he can't be given a proper burial, we will always be here to wish Thomas a happy birthday. It seems only appropriate that the youngest one here lights the candle this year. Okay. Thanks for sharing this special day with us. Happy birthday, Thomas. Cut to nighttime, they're in the RV laying down. Clark is stirring. Lois says, I'm surprised it took you this long, Smallville. Sometimes it's scary how well you know me. And he flies away. He searches the river for the body of Thomas Dowd and then delivers it, wrapped in an American flag, to the Gettysburg lodges with a card that reads, I ran DNA samples at the Justice League headquarters. This is indeed Thomas Dowd. 154 years is long enough, take him home. Which begs the question, what family member did they get the DNA from and how did they acquire it so he could run this test in the JLA watchtower? And the book ends with a very nice little family moment. One of those things that make us love the Superman books these days, where they're just driving in the RV. You see John in the background, they're just quiet. You know, because sometimes families are like that. You could just sit and be quiet with each other and it's good. And he just turns and says, who wants mac and cheese? And they answer in the affirmative, and we see him drive away with the American flag attached to the RV. And that's the end of the book. I loved this storyline. Declaration is just one of the best, and it comes at the right time. We need stuff like this. We need stories that just, it gives us a good feeling about America. This is about America's war past. You know, it's about the ugly parts, but it tells us a little bit about the fact that there were people who stood up and fought for our freedoms, or for the freedoms of other people. And that is something that we should be proud of as Americans. I'm not a big fan of the fake stuff, the stuff at the end. I think they could have ended with a real story and just, you know, had some good message to say at the end or something. I think it's weird to drop off bones to somebody and don't hang around to at least give them the story as to why they're there. That was odd. Overall, yes, this was a great book. It's a great series, storyline within the series. A little bit weaker than the last issue, but still definitely something to pick up. So also, I don't know, maybe I should say sorry, because it seemed like this book I really just read, I didn't have a lot of comments. This was a very fact-based book up until the end, where, you know, we know people died in the Vietnam War. We know how many. We know about the World War II, Korea War. It was a whole bunch of facts and dates and such, telling us about the men and women who sacrificed. And there's not really a lot to comment as far as that is concerned. Khmer Rouge is the Pol Pot situation. Who's going to back up Pol Pot? Who's going to be on the other side of this particular issue? And I hope nobody. So there wasn't a lot of comments to be made while reading it, and I apologize if it really came off like story time with England teen.